with a little prayer to just kind of get us centered and focused.
Okay.
And I have a theme.
Okay, great.
I know. I knew you'd be excited. So, Rivka, do you mind leading us just kind of in an opening prayer to just kind of get us centered and focused as other women join us today?
Okay, sure. Put me on the spot. It's cool. All right. If everyone can put their feet on the ground, if you will. And maybe your hands on your knees or your thighs. And maybe even close your eyes. And we can take an inhale through our nose. Maybe one more inhale. And feel the breath go down, down, down through our feet into the ground. And feel energy coming back as we inhale all through our bodies. And let's do a simple prayer to our ancestors and to how we view or feel what a higher being feels like to us. And just say that we thank you to our ancestors and we thank you to our higher being for allowing us to exist, to build on the work that you have done throughout the centuries, that we are part of an unbroken chain of strong, beautiful, and powerful beings. We are all members of this beautiful existence and this creation. And we have, all of us together collectively have what it takes within us to make this world better, to make our communities better, and to make ourselves better so that we can all thrive together. And when we join together, ancestors, help us bring all of this knowledge that we have within us out into the collective space so that we can share our little pieces of knowing. And with those little pieces of knowing, we put together a larger knowing. So as we move through this meeting, ancestors and our higher being, allow us to be gentle with each other and ourselves, to be open, to listen actively, and hold space for all of our beautiful siblings. And let us say amen.
Amen. Amen.
So Monique had asked me to kind of come up with some themes for this week's meeting. And I just kind of wanted to jump into that. But part of it is that, you know, Rivka, people don't know you, like Salona and Monique and I know each other locally. But if you don't mind telling folks just a little bit about yourself while I pull up the meeting points.
Sure. Again, putting me on the spot. Great. My name is Rivka, she, her, hers. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee. What's up, Dirty South? I am a longtime organizer, activist, healer. I focus a lot on somatic healing and structural integration work, and also like these incubation weekends where we can draw out our trauma in a safe space and work through it. Recently, I've been working on immigration stuff with Never Again. I am Jewish and I'm very Jewish. So I've been wanting to also help my people heal with, like, and I'm focused on multi-generational trauma. I have worked and been working with psychedelics for that reason. I also believe that making psychedelics illegal is also like part of like the whole racist white supremacist structure. So that's another reason why I'm interested not only in exploring plant medicine for its benefits, but also decriminalizing plant medicine, because I'm really interested in the overarching smashing of white supremacy and all the racist institutions and structures in this place so-called America. So I've been in New York for a couple months trying to do some work, and I'm happy to be with all of y'all.
Thank you, Rivka. I'm not sure if Monique or Salona, do you guys feel like introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Monique. That's all I got. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I loved your description for Entheo. I loved that, that you're, I see you in that description that you provided to us.
Well, yeah, it was good. Thanks for providing the jump off point. But yeah, I'm Monique. I live here in Tacoma, Washington, or University Place, Washington, and I've been doing medicine work for several years now. And yeah, I'm just I'm glad I can be a support to this movement. Yeah, because I think that these medicines should be available to everybody without being penalized.
Yeah.
Or criminalized.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure.
So that's why I'm here.
Awesome.
Amongst some other things too, to give balance to, to this movement of plant medicine, and that, women's voice and people of color are, at the table. They.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
Salona.
Hi, Salona.
Monique.
Hi.
Hi. I miss you, lady. Person.
Oh, hey.
Hi, thanks for your prayer and invocation, Rivka.
Yeah.
My name's Salona, and grandmother of 2 precious granddaughters, mother of 4. Well, I birthed 4 living people. And yeah, I'm here because I want to promote the heck out of remembering our mother's breath. And for me, all the work and expertise around historical trauma, generational trauma, and our indigenous healing modalities, understanding peri and prenatal psychology, and just the general development of our human folks with our social, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical selves. My goal is just to mostly promote the healing of our sacred womb, our 8th direction for us, so that we can begin to create and sustain, our highest selves and serve them. And for me, it feels like my feet are to the fire because 2 of my grandchildren are already here. And my work is for their great-great-grandchildren, who I probably won't get to meet physically. But anyways, it's good to be here tonight, and I'm just going to stop the video and mute when I'm not talking. But if when I talk, I'll turn the video on. I'm working on a lot of projects at home, and so I'm wearing my flannel and got jeans with holes all over and paint stains. So it's good to see everybody.
Thanks. And I'm Leo, and I work with Decrim and with Entheo, but I'm like so much more than that, and I don't want to be defined by that. And I've been transformed by plant medicine in my life. I think the greatest impact for me was finding the ayahuasca church, and that's how I met Monique. And it's interesting because it's a Jewish man that is the head of the ayahuasca church that I joined. And I always thought it was interesting that in that church, there had been so many variations of the church. It changed so much from its origins that I always wanted to form like a Jewish branch of that church, And there are a lot of Jews in that church that are just drawn to that ayahuasca church anyway. But, you know, I was protected by law in terms of it being a legal ayahuasca church. And yet I still didn't feel comfortable coming out to my social worker, coworkers, government workers. So I think what that created was a split inside of me, like a split between who I could be professionally and how I was seen professionally, and then having to hide this part of me that was so transformative. And I went through a period where I had such a tough custody battle that I was present for my son, but I wasn't present for my son. I wasn't fully present as a parent. So I was missing out on like precious time with my son because I was really hung up on this custody battle and how many points I had against my ex, or how many points he had against me, or the horrible things he had said in court, or how could this person have said that thing in that document. And I was tripping, and I was not present for my kid, and I was not present for myself. And I was physically in my body, but I wasn't in my body. And then I remember a friend of mine talking about a mutual friend who had joined this church, and he's like, I don't know, he's joined some crazy, like, you know, ayahuasca church or something. And they talk about in the ayahuasca community how it's like a spirit, and how some people like hear that word and they're like, wait a second, what's that word you just said? And then other people are like they just don't even hear you. Like if you mentioned that you had drank ayahuasca, they wouldn't even hear you. They wouldn't even notice the word. But I was very intrigued by that word. And through that medicine, I was able to, you know, fully come around to be present for my son, and, you know, act as my own attorney in my custody case, and kind of pick myself up off the floor and be like, the only person who's going to pick you up off the floor is you. You know, the only person who's going to be able to fix this is you. So that medicine, that's what that medicine meant for me in my life. There's been a lot of dynamics, just to, you know, to transition. There's been a lot of dynamics in our community lately, like the larger psychedelic community, as we're talking about women as leaders, right? How do we share leadership as women? I see Salona and I being very active in leadership roles in our local, you know, decrim movement. Both of us have, you know, real leadership abilities, and it's interesting because we lead in different ways. And then also, like that history of patriarchy tells us that there's a limited amount of power at the table, right? And that women are going to fight over that limited slice. Like, hey, sorry girls, but you got that limited slice of the pie for your power. So have fun fighting over that, you know? And so as I look at women leaders and how they handle sharing power, and I see women leaders that are like, honey, there's enough power for all of us. Don't buy the bullshit, you know? But as we envision these women leaders that we want to be, because I see all of you as leaders, you know, in this movement, how do we handle conflicts, not just conflicts with men, but conflicts with one another? Because I'm seeing a lot of conflict happen kind of on the national stage. And I think, you know, maybe it's this Mars in retrograde, you know, period that we're in, but I'm seeing a lot of conflict. I'm seeing a lot of drama. And I'm just curious, like, how are we interpreting? Like, when I think to myself, how would women handle this if women were in charge? How would women handle these conflicts? If I have a conflict with Salona or Monique or like Melissa in DC or Rivka, like, how would I handle that conflict? And how do we handle conflict kind of on a gender basis? You know, because I think historically women have been taught, the first thing that they are taught from a very young age is to be people pleasers, you know, and to buy into being there for other people and being good caretakers. And so it's very hard to wrestle that if we've been given limited roles in what we can be in power as far as leaders. You know, we have like the Hillary Clinton model of embodying, like, I'll be one of the boys and then maybe they'll accept me with my shoulder pads, you know, and none of us are served by that, of the stuffing of emotions and the divorce from sexuality and just everything they ask of you when they want you to be like a carbon copy of like male, historic white male, whatever that looks like. But then in addition, what does it look like for the other option, which is this nurturing woman, right? This mother that's always giving. And I've seen women in our community that get very depleted by giving and are always doing this nurturing and this mothering role. And I don't want to do that either. I don't want that role either. I don't want to be depleted by giving away my energy either. So how do we find balance? Because I see these women in my life, myself included, who are tapped out, who are exhausted, who are tired, who are working really hard and, you know, putting on a brave face, but it's tough. And, you know, I think it's interesting to look at the unique pressures on women to maybe not always talk about how hard it is. So those were my thoughts, and I'll stop talking, but the historic paradigm that upholds the patriarchal forms of power that women are allowed, how women may be pitted against one another in terms of looking at power, how do we envision women leaders, and how do we envision women leaders handling conflict? 4 questions. Monique, are you ready?
What was the first one?
Do you feel like women are limited in their roles as leaders in this movement? Do you feel like they're supported? Do you feel like allies are walking the walk? Do you feel, you know?
Well, I feel as though you know, I'm new to this, you know, subject of and topic in relating to activism. So I'm not really inside this, you know, I'm kind of like on the outside of it, you know, but what was your question again?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this, like women as leaders in these communities, like you're part of a church, which has a more patriarchal structure and it's based in Catholicism, but just in general, even if it's not just within that community, where do women have roles as far as leaders, or how do you see the support for women as leaders? Like, and how do you see women leading in ways that are different than men? Maybe that would be a better thing to kind of look at.
I can speak to that, how women are different, their different way of leadership. I can speak to that. I think from what I've seen, like women have a little bit more flow when it comes to their leadership. And this is just in general terms, you know, because there's always ranges within, because everybody, you know, expresses themselves, you know, differently. But from what I've seen, like women have a greater ability to have flow. And what I've noticed with men leadership, they really get in their mind and get really analytical and get into a place of like linear thinking of what's right and what's wrong. And I find it hinders their ability to really have the ability to respond to something in the present and be present. And I think the ability of the energy of a woman is, you know, is like a circle. It's like swirling. It's like very energetic. And I notice the male or patriarchy gets really scared about that because there's nothing for them to hold on to. You know what I mean? Like a rule. When you have a rule, there's guidelines and there's protocols and there's things that you can fall back onto. But, you know, the feminine flow responds to what is being presented and I don't know.
No, I hear you.
It's a greater state of flow. But, you know, I think both has a place. Both has a place. You know, there's been times where I've been in the works and been really kind of like ungrounded, and I appreciated the approach, you know, of my brother being kind of like on task. But even when being on task, there's openness to be in a state of flow. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but yeah.
Any thoughts, Rivka?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts. Oh, is there still background noise? Do I need to? Okay.
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts. And I totally hear everything that Monique is saying. I think that there's, for one thing, I think that a lot of times the reason why we have conflict is because people don't feel like they're being heard.
Yeah.
And then also my experience has been that everyone who's showing up to the movement, including psychedelics, are showing up because they have experienced trauma, and everyone is in a different space on their healing journey. Some people are not even on their healing journey yet. Like, so we're dealing with all of that. And we don't have to address all of it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm bringing that into the space to say that, like, that's what we're dealing with. One of the things that we always do, especially like during meetings, like in the organizing spaces that I'm used to, if there's pushback, there's sometimes pushback for white cis het men, but we have this system of meetings where it's called taking stack. And so one of the things is that the people who get to speak first and longest are folks from marginalized communities. And so we make sure that in meetings, we center the margins, right? So that a lot of times means that the cis het white dude speaks last if he gets to speak at all. And you have to be okay with that. It's actually really important that if we're gonna do this work, that we have to address what's going on and be okay with that. And what, like, especially cishet white men need to learn how to fucking listen. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to actively listen. They don't know about nonviolent communication. They don't know, they're the only time they're waiting to speak, and that's it. They're not really listening. So it's not really up to us to do that work. It's up to them to do that work, to learn how to do that. And one of the ways we can help them do that is by being very firm and saying, we're taking stack. This is how this meeting's going to go. Deal with it. The other thing that we always talk about with conflict is that impact is more important than intention. So it doesn't matter what your intention is, and we have to let go of that. You can't say, well, I didn't mean it, like, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it that way. It doesn't matter how you meant it. What matters is the impact. So when we're trying to do some conflict resolution and maybe some mediation, one of the things that we can talk about maybe is, like, let's say, Monique, that I said, I don't know what I said to you. I don't know. I said something to you that was like I was maybe making an off-color joke, or I was being super, like, I sometimes make sexual jokes, like, which is really dumb, but I'm a kind of a goofball. And Monique, you were like, that really is offensive to me. Now, if I said to you, like, well, I didn't mean it that way, I was just joking. I mean, how would that, like, that would come across too well, right? But if I said, Monique, you know, oh gosh, I'm really sorry. I will, moving forward, I will not be making those jokes around you, and I apologize. I hope that's okay. Are we okay? Do you need anything else from me? And you could say yes, no, maybe there's more to talk about. Maybe it opens a Pandora's box. We don't know. But usually what happens is that you feel heard. I learned a lesson. I was humble and learned a lesson, and we move on, right? And so you know that you can trust me moving forward, that, like, if I'm doing something shitty, Monique can be like, you're doing something shitty. It doesn't feel, or maybe don't say that, but, like, you know, this impacted me in a way that was harmful, and you know that you can trust me and be vulnerable, and that means that we're going to work together better. So,
Love it.
Yay! Mazel tov is Simon tov is Simon. Okay. Woo! Yeah, so those are a couple of things, like really like diving more into like restorative justice models, conflict resolution models. You know, and we can get deeper into that. I can send you all links on some shit. I'm sure you have some shit you can send, and some stuff that you know about. But yeah, so it's not a like so. And I hear you about like like all of us, like we all have feminine and masculine energy in us, and our feminine energy is definitely more flowy, and our masculine energy is definitely more structured. So, I mean, we have both of that within us, and it's really about the balance between the two. So, like understanding that in the moment, this like having, I think it's more about having tools in our toolkit, so that in the moment, what tool works is like one thing might not work. Restorative justice might not work because restorative justice needs everyone to contribute and to agree to the outcome. So you might not be in a situation yet where you can do restorative justice, right? But you can still do some conflict resolution stuff. So it's so maybe you need to hold more space. Maybe you like need to do some mirroring work. There's a lot of different things. So I think it's more about like having different tools in our toolkit. Like there's not one answer. It's and then like understanding in the moment. So we like connect to our feminine energy and say we're gonna flow into the moment and pick out this tool, and we're gonna use this tool.
But Rivka, I'm curious how you are like observing, trying to build community, right, in a sexist world, like as a woman who's asking men to do this work instead of that emotional caretaking around men's emotions. You're saying you're standing up and asking men to do that work. But how is it to build community? Like, because you want to build community, right? As a woman leader.
So my experience has been, if I'm backed up by other folks, they have no choice but to do the work. And in the end, what happens is if we do the work, and we all have work to do. I have a metric F ton of shit to unravel still. I mean, it's a lifelong journey. We all know that. But specifically, like folks who are really entrenched in their patriarchy, the thing that I've noticed is either they don't choose to continue to participate, or they're like a wounded animal that goes and licks their wounds and then comes back, or they do the work. And the thing is, and the point being too, that if we are firm in how we decide we want to do things, which is inclusive, which is smashing the white supremacy, which is smashing the patriarchy in our actions and in our movement and what we do and how we interact with each other, if we're firm about that, what happens is we bring our vibe attracts our vibe, right? So we bring community to us that's going to do the work, that's going to be open to unraveling, that's going to be open to like, you know, self-crit and all of the stuff. And so we're going to build the firm foundation. So when these patriarchal schmackety schmacks come in and want to like futz with our shit, they can't, because we already have this firm foundation. You know, and then maybe they learn something. So I think it's about building the right community. I think it's about being smart and building the right community and being firm in what we want to do and being clear about what we want to do and how we want to do it. Because what did Audre Lorde say? The master tools will not build our house, cannot build our house, or cannot take down their house, right? So what we're trying to build a different house, right? And we're definitely trying to take down their house, and we can't use the master's tools like patriarchy or whiteness, right? So, I also.
Do you have any specific thoughts on building a psychedelic movement as a woman in a field that has been dominated by white men?
I think that there's going to be conflict. I think that here's what I think. I think gird your loins, ladies. I feel like I I don't think we should back down. Here's my thoughts. I don't think we should back down. I don't think we're doing anything wrong. I think that we all have a lot of like drive, skill sets, ability, intellect, and also a better ability to organize and work with other people and build community. And I just wanted to, like, I met the Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who was part of the civil rights movement doing some work in the South. And one of the things he said was the only reason the civil rights movement worked was 4 things: students, unions, churches. But he said most importantly, the civil rights movement worked because of women. Because women will get on the phone and do phone chains and will make sure everyone's fed and the whole thing. Women know how to organize. We are better. I'm just going to say this out loud. We are better at it. We just are. We just are, okay? So we need to do it. And if someone doesn't like it, my first thought is they can kiss my rather prodigious tuchus. It's a good tuchus. It's just, but that's neither here nor there. I don't mean that like being aggressive towards these folks. I'm not saying that. I'm saying internally, I feel like they can kiss my tuchus and just be like real firm. Like, no, we're doing it this way. No, we're doing this way. Like, like, you're welcome, but no, we're doing it this way. And no, you're not going to take over this space after we've just done all this work. No.
Right.
So I think, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to get
I'm sorry.
So
I
I wasn't sure if Salona wanted to check in on this subject.
I do. Thank you. And I just enjoyed listening to both Rivka and Monique and you, Leo, even though you started in during your introduction. Let me go on the front porch.
No, you're free.
Tell me what the first question was again, please, because I was resonating with what Monique was saying, and then just now Rivka took it to a different phase. And so, Leo, can you please state the first question?
Yeah, mainly about leadership for women in the psychedelic movement as they're looking at conflict on the national stage and also within our communities when we're kind of talking about some of this defensiveness and posturing and like whatever. Mm-hmm. How are women dealing with conflict? How are women as leaders sharing power within the movement? Like, how are we trying to model different things, maybe, different ways of sharing power and different ways of resolving conflict?
Yeah, I love that question. That's a great question. It's kind of like 3 or 4 questions in one, because you're talking about women in leadership, and naturally we are leaders. We just have more water in our body, which means we have a bigger capacity to create, which means we can create life, and that's what some of us do. Sorry, just taking a moment for those who haven't been, or those who have lost babies and birthed dead babies, and okay. So I feel like naturally, so in the Northwest Coast and both my mom's and dad's people, women were the matriarchs. It was matrilineal societies, and that's because we noticed right away that we carry more water in our bodies, that we can create life. So there's a little bit more responsibility there. There's a little bit more accountability that we get to take advantage of or not. And I feel like that's the problem when it comes to women in leadership, is what you're talking about, sharing power or not acknowledging that there is a power struggle. I feel like there's a big risk factor when it comes to bringing in all these women together without these kind of conversations, without this dialogue. There needs to be constant transparency and constant ownership of triggers of conflict. I like Rivka's example of offending Monique, and she changed her tone a little bit when she acted as Monique's voice, and so that was really cute. And that's so necessary. They need to also entertain different ideas and entertain different spirits, because we employ every part. We employ our connection to Mother Earth, being mom, being grandma, being auntie, being sisters. And we just have different natural instincts. We have totally different natural protocols within us to be caretakers, to understand and promote wellness. Again, it's because our main, like when we heal our wounds, when we heal that 8th direction, it's like all of a sudden there's zero tolerance for abuse. There's like zero tolerance for pain. There's zero tolerance for causing the suffering of others, because of that accountability. And so, you know, my experience with women has been both positive and negative. Like I've experienced, you know, women who are more patriarchy and, you know, feeling like there's a stagnation of power. And so like, I'm going to claw you down and like step on you or like slander or smear, just because I'm not like an old fat white man, you know, or just because like for me in Indian communities, because I'm not an old elder man, you know. And so it's a constant practice for me to both honor and respect my own power and my own role, and be really conscientious of other women of other colors and where they might be at. Having that kind of confidence and competency in my connection and the practice of my voice and the practice of my words. Being a traditional storyteller really helps a lot. And I feel like it's my own healing that's brought me to that level of understanding and being able to meet other women where they're at, and just really I just want to promote health and wellness and like total love and total respect in whichever way is needed. You know, give me conflict, because for me that's an opportunity to reconcile. Like give me conflict, give me trauma, because I mean, don't cause harm to me, but like but like I get it. Like
But
I know how to heal
do you feel
the
like
sacred womb. And I feel like that's the biggest part, that's the biggest issue or barrier to our inner empowerment, to our true connection to one another, to sustain another woman, like to truly be there for them, like, you know, to be another woman's ride or die. Like, hell yeah, like I'm there. And I just got goosebumps. And you know, I think there's a rhyme and reason, and I think it's all about timing. And I feel like it's time to do that right now.
I was going to ask you, Salona, do you feel like when you're doing this healing work with these women who are like young and have been taught to like hate themselves or hate their bodies or hate their reproductive system or hate their mothers or whatever, have all this hatred towards their sisters, do you feel like even if you don't address it with them, even if you don't say like, hey, I can tell you swallow this like pile of bullshit about like that women have to fight each other or claw each other or fight over men or like whatever, but do you feel like you teach them through your actions and through your magic?
Yeah.
I'm just using magic loosely.
Definitely.
Like, you know,
yeah.
Do you teach?
Yeah, no.
Do you teach them to trust women again? You know what I mean? Because I hear you.
That's a huge part of it. And a big percentage of my clients, because I do one-on-one sessions of like generational brain spotting and somatic archaeology, and it all comes down to like their mom. It all comes down to their mom. And for the females, for the folks who identify as women, there's that like acceptance of like their true power and like all that work and all that suffering that they bonded with, and like the burden that they've carried throughout their whole life. And these are like amazing people. These are women in leadership. These are people in leadership positions who have changed the world.
These women had complicated relationships with their mother, but made peace with the complicated relationship?
Through doing the work. And so like the session happens, and through the session they get like a reconciliation, and there's like physiological responses. And then for the week after, it's like what was a reconciliation? Like let's work on that. Like let's say it, let's own it, and let's integrate that. because we're talking about generational healing. We're talking about generational recovery, like true recover, like to recover yourself, to go back into that sacred water that you were kept in, and to reinterpret those questions that you had in utero or right after you were born, whether you were surrendered or not, or neglected or abandoned or what have you. But it comes down to like how you interpreted those, and then how do you identify with that, right? And so I feel like for I have, of course, main objectives. So I want my Recover Me Center, where I can practice psilocybin in ceremony, where I can do different healing modalities and train folks in that, so that so it's not just me. And I have plant medicines, I have different things, and my overall main objective is to support and promote healing our womb. And yeah, I do believe that
It's interesting
when I
though,
am around
because
folks, like they see it and they get it, because I have 3 daughters and 2 granddaughters. And we all have zero tolerance for objectification of people and things. And like, we all have an inner strength in knowing, and like, it's all about like growing our intuition and trusting ourselves. And that means I have to trust you. And like, we're going to use our breath in a good way towards each other, and everything's practice. Like, we're all practicing constantly. So we get to make mistakes, and the whole, I didn't mean to, the whole, like I heard them say, like, when people say I didn't mean to, my family knows all about me going on about that, because it's like, oh, that means that you were just flagrant. That means that you were flagrant, because guess what? Adults know exactly what we're doing when we're doing it. And if we say we didn't mean to, that means we were just neglectful, not just, but, to cause harm is just, it's not okay. So definitely like being accountable and, and being intentional. So I don't know if I answered any of those questions.
You answered a lot, but
okay.
I don't know if you've heard of the mitochondrial Eve, but it's the idea that the mitochondrial Eve, it's followed from the first female Homo sapien, that you can trace the mitochondrial Eve all the way back, because it goes down from mother to mother. So the fact that we can trace this lineage, but only with the female line in all of that we all go back potentially, to the original Eve kind of idea. But I'm just going to take a 2-minute break, so I'm hoping Monique or Rivka can talk from it. Rivka, Monique.
Yeah.
I need one of you to cover the microphone for a minute while I run to the bathroom.
Okay.
You got it, Monique?
No, Rivka, I think you.
I can do it. I can do it.
Okay, do it.
Yeah, Monique, you should totally do it.
Do it.
I don't know. This is all very new to me, because I've been like, oh God, I wanted tobacco so bad. Anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I put it out? I'm sorry.
No, don't.
I've been trying to quit forever. Like.
No.
Okay.
It's totally okay. All right, so I've been on the cusp of like contemplating power. And because the word power, we've been using it a lot, And
really?
Yeah, and I'm studying the I Ching, and so in the reading it talks about power, the misconception of power, and how power leads to, I don't know, kind of like destruction. I want to kind of like read it again, but it got me kind of like thinking for the past couple of days, to like overpower, or to make someone do something, or believe, or convincing someone, or in all the ways that we've been indoctrinated to believe what power is. And I think kind of like what's happening now is a shedding of that, because that's not, I think what we've been indoctrinated to believe what power is not actually the power. It's not actually what's going to create the change and
Right.
and change the tide. Because I've kind of like, you know, like the film industry and stuff like that. They're kind of like getting in on this, like the you know, powerful women and, you know, lead the woman being the lead. And it seems like a lot of these stories are coming from the place of of a masculine concept with a woman's face. And it's just showing the masculine, or I guess the wounded masculine idea of what power is. And I think power, what power looks like to me, is in the face of like distortion, or being calm and centered, and seeing through the illusion of someone's anger and stuff like that, and standing firm and still. That is what power is to me. Like when people are like going off the rails, and kind of like the idea of like the eye of the storm, being centered and calm, is like that. The center of the storm is where the power is, not the storm. And I've been in the contemplation about that, as you know, as us as women, as we claim our power, or in what that means, you know. I don't know.
Right.
She's on potty break. I'm just filling that in. I'm in a contemplation. I can't hear you, girl. Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So there's this great book by this Brazilian philosopher, Paulo Freire. It's called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And it kind of goes into what you were talking about. I've been having conversations along the same lines of kind of like seventh wave feminism. So it's this idea of bringing things up. So it's this anti-capitalist idea of bringing things back home, bringing things back to the hearth, bringing things back to community, back to togetherness. We all have a tradition of that. And capitalism separates us, the patriarchy separates us. So it's the idea of bringing us back to like real power that's based on some like real ancient stuff. And it's not like, it's not a new thing that women, like Salona was saying, and someone, you know, I mean, I come from a matrilineal / patriarchal culture. So it's very interesting. But like the idea of like building power together, like that we are the wave, we're the tsunami, we're utilizing nature and what's been given us to create real power and real community. And while we're doing that, we're also having to do this dual work of unraveling all the harm that has come from living in a patriarchal, white supremacist, capitalist society. So it's kind of like we're building power and community by building these parallel structures. Ayahuasca church, maybe a psychedelic shoal, I don't know. So we're like building these parallel structures that are like parallel to this like society that we live in, but we're bringing it back to the heart. So when I think about like women in power, I don't think about the shoulder pads and the like the lean in bullshit or whatever. I think about the fact that my mother could bake challah, raise 3 kids, get a master's degree, and also do a lot of cool stuff for her community. And she could do, and like all the women that I grew up around were just like really just powerful. And came from a long line of really powerful women. And that's what I think about, like the fact that like all of us have that in us. And all we really need to do is bring it forward, right? Like Salona was saying, like heal our wombs so that we can be the eye of the storm, like Monique was saying. So I think that like part of this process is to be together and have these conversations and maybe like be vulnerable with each other and say, you know, this is how my womb is hurting. You know, I just need to talk about it. This is why I'm not feeling grounded. This is why I don't feel like, you know, I can do this thing. So I think that like being like the most powerful thing I can think of is being in a safe space with people that you can share that with, honestly. And that's,
Yeah.
I feel like how we're a community and build power together. Thoughts?
Word. I said word, but I was muted. Yeah, I mean, this has been kind of heavy for me. Like when I took that break, I was having a moment where I like Salona's stuff about the womb. Like, I'm sorry, but just like what she was talking about, the women that were having complicated relationships with their mothers, but had worked through that and had come into a place of better leadership as a result, was how I was interpreting what she was saying with working with that mother wound. And like, I just was like, I was, when I took that moment, I was like, yeah, this is kind of deep. This is kind of heavy. so it's getting a little heavy. so I appreciate what you're saying, Rivka. Like, I think this is a beautiful community. And sometimes I joke about the fact that there's so many women in the Seattle psychedelic community that we're creating here. You know, but another part of me is like, why am I apologizing? Like, you know, there's so many men that are dominating in so many other areas. Like, why am I apologizing if we just randomly are attracting all these like fucking fabulous women? Like, why apologize? It's going to be like a sea of mermaids with like some mermen that are cool. Like, I don't know. Well, we're welcoming all the mermen that want to come.
And a cat.
And cats.
And cats.
Oh, sweet. Yes, all cats will be welcome in our world, Rivka.
All cats are people.
Yeah. But I appreciate what you were saying about your mom, because I feel like there's so much strength here if we go back to kind of like our relationships with our mothers and forgive maybe the way that they treated us, or the way that they treated themselves, or the way that they treated other women. And we had a situation recently where we had to give feedback to a man. And I think in general, that's hard sometimes, because you had talked before about, Rivka, the 3 types of people that kind of stick around, but go off and are wounded for a while. And then they, you know, meander back, or they're just like, peace out. Like, I'm not interested in any feedback, or they do not get any feedback, or they do the work. So how I'm feeling is that I want to support men in doing their work, but I don't want to do their work for them. And I want to ask them to do their work, and I want to remind them to do their work, but I want to do that in a firm way. You know, you had talked about that firmness, and I don't think it's my job to take care of their feelings, like in that historic way of tiptoeing around men's feelings. But I want men to feel encouraged to come to our community, you know. But I also, when I'm giving feedback or things that might come up that, you know, are concerning or something, I would hope that people could engage, you know. But I find that my energy is very limited right now, and I only have so much energy, and I don't want to give a lot of energy to men that are wounded about feedback when I'm focused on a larger mission here. That's all. Salona, did you have anything, or?
Yeah, sorry. Let me. I tried to text you something, Leo. I wanted to read something. So you won't be able to see me because I'll be reading it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if you could see me or not. So healthy wolves and healthy women share certain psychic characteristics: keen sensing, playful spirit, and a heightened capacity for devotion. Wolves in women are relational by nature, inquiring, possessed of great endurance and strength. They are deeply intuitive, intensely concerned with their young, their mates, and their pack. They are experienced in adapting to constantly changing circumstances. They are fiercely stalwart and very brave. Yes, both have been hounded, harassed, and falsely imputed to be devouring and devious, overly aggressive, of lesser value than those who are their detractors. They have been the targets of those who would clean up the wilds, as well as the wildish environs of the psyche, extincting the instinctual and leaving no trace of it behind. So the reason that that I wanted to read that is because it's just completely true. It's about it's a book. I'll text you what the name of the book is, but there's too much erasure. There's too much erasure of us, of our power, of our strength, of our connection, of our capacity, and I'm done with accepting that. I'm done with acknowledging that. Even like this will be the last time I talk about that erasure. Because it's time to reclaim our voice, our choice, and our power. And that is what I am all about promoting. And so I just appreciate the conversation between Monique and Rivka while Leo was having Leo's moment. And yeah, I'm here. Got your back.
I love it. I love it. I feel it. It's so interesting because I feel like the doubts that I have about trusting with women are sometimes created in my dynamics with them, with men. Does that make sense? So like I'll think I'm good with some chick, you know, like we're good. And then we'll have an interaction with men and I will walk away being like, are we good? Like, I don't know. Are we? And it's interesting how that plays out for me sometimes. But I love sisterhood. I love the power of women. I you know. Rivka, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was thinking. I thought Monique might want to say. I didn't know if Monique was about to say something. I didn't want to. No.
No, I'm
No.
listening.
Okay. Well, I think that I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think that like being adjacent to power is sometimes really attractive, or like this like false idea of power. When we think about like, not to get political, but like 51% of white Christian women voted for Trump last time. So they voted against themselves. And I think that like there's a lot of women that hold up the patriarchy, sometimes like in the political sphere, sometimes interpersonally. Because I think a lot of times we've been conditioned and indoctrinated to do so. So that's sometimes hard to watch or hard to experience. So I just wanted to acknowledge like your experiences and just say, I guess that's part of the work. And I'm not sure really, like, I mean, I think it depends on the person's like self-awareness, like whether or not you can even address it with them. So I guess that's a case by case basis. But again, I think that like, I think it's about also where we put our focus. And I really liked what Salona said. It like actually made me want to like go out in the middle of the street and yell power to the people. But I'm not going to, because I'm in the middle of Borough Park, which is a very religious area. Anyway, I don't think they'd appreciate it. But yeah. So I think that that's right, Solana. Like, I think that it's about time that we just start focusing on what we can do and being firm in that and our resolve, and put that in our bodies, like really put it in our bodies, like maybe put up notes all around our houses if we need to, like the idea of like where we put our focus. right? So I think that like part of it could be like building that community of sisterhood in a very real, authentic, and loving way. And I mean, definitely having spaces where we can kvetch about like the patriarchy or whatever, but also like really focusing on what we can do together, and instead of talking about erasure, just make sure that we are not erased and that our sisters are our siblings, you know, our non-men are not erased.
Here, here.
Like, because I'm done. I'm done too. I've been done.
Yeah. So I'm conscious of time. We've got time to have a good prayer or closing circle. I'm just wondering, Salona, would you feel comfortable doing that, or Monique?
Hey, Salona.
I don't think she can hear us. Oh,
I knew it. I was like, no, not me. Monique can do it.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
This
let
time.
me
Maybe
go to
next
where.
time.
next time Monique is going to do it.
Next
Okay,
time I'll
thank you.
do it.
Okay. I'm like an elephant. I don't forget. Okay, so let's see. Let's take, let's have 10 seconds of silence first. And I invite you to take 4 deep breaths. And each breath, deep, 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 deeper breathing. And I invite you to put your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your tummy, over your belly button. And your next breath, just breathe nothing but love to and from your heart to your belly button. We all have that same first trauma. We all were birthed and we all had the umbilical cord cut. So we could just pendulate the love, pendulate the sacred breath. And everything that we shared together tonight was amazing and beautiful. And breathe that straight to your belly button, straight to your heart. And I invite you to allow some thawing, some crying, some tears, some kind of thawing of whatever's been frozen, whatever's been that erasure that we spoke about, that the stuff that's moving around now in your body. Could definitely feel the energy really picked up and got really heavy and so solid, and that's so beautiful. So just honor that. And thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you.
Yes, thank you.
Really feel it. Thanks. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Good night, ladies.
Good night, ladies.